Hello and welcome. Today I'm joined by Mia Bays, a leading female producer and marketing consultant. Mia, you're also founder of Missing in Action Films, and you are director of the Bird's Eye View charity, who actively campaign for gender equality within the film industry. Mia, as someone who has produced short and feature-length films such as Six Shooter and Letters from Baghdad, which have won and received BAFTA and Oscar nominations, which is really impressive, what inspired you to take up a career in film?
Well, it's funny actually. Nothing inspired me. I didn't ever really think it was accessible to me. It just life, the fates took hold. Yep. So my mum took me to the cinema every week since I was 4, but I never knew anyone who worked in film, and I loved cinema. My mum loved cinema, so it was instilled in me from a very young age.
Yeah.
And then when I'd finished my A levels and I was I was about to go to an interview at Cambridge University to study. I was hoping to study English, and then my grandmother died, and my grandmother had brought me up along with my mum. I'm from a single parent family. It's really important to say this. I have had no privilege. I went to a comprehensive school. We were poor, and usually film is not accessible to people like me. And so I didn't go to that interview in Cambridge. It's one of the best things I ever did. So I decided I had to work, I needed to pay the bills. And there was an ad in The Guardian. I knew I wanted to kind of work in media in some way, and I thought originally publishing. And I had a few interviews, didn't get the job, got an interview for what was called a film distribution company called Mainline Pictures. Had no idea what that was, and thought film, yeah, great, wow, and got the job. And it turned out that the woman who ran the company was the one who'd interviewed me. And she was looking for someone, I think, I've never asked her actually whether it was consciously she wanted to give a break to a kid who didn't have the advantage. I'm not really sure about that, but anyway, she did. And so it changed my life. So, mentoring and giving opportunities and opening doors for people for whom the door is often closed is really important to me.
That's like a through line that you sort of led in your career as well, isn't it? That supporting people who don't have that opportunity. It goes back to, campaigning for gender equality as well, and making sure it's a level playing ground in that sort of sense. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. In the meantime, what would you say what has been the key to your success?
I would say, well, when you're a kid who's got no privilege, you really have to realise quickly that you've got to be really bloody good at what you do, and you really got to know. So I really paid attention, and I learned film. I didn't go to film school, so I've always worked and learned everything on the job. And so I realised kind of early on, a lot of this is also background and upbringing too, that I just paid attention, and I knew I had to be better than everybody else because I certainly didn't sound like everyone else. And so I got listened to if I knew stuff, and by obviously learning on the job. So at that point I was kind of learning about how to release and market a film, and why audiences went to one film over another film, and how to market films that don't necessarily have stars, all of those challenges that are competing against Hollywood, what independent cinema has to push against. And so I would say that was a kind of big lesson, and I've carried that through, and that's a way to kind of keep your voice being heard, to know something and to have backup. So I would often be able to say, well, that didn't work on this film. So a lot of it is about authenticity, I would say, and not trying to be something you're not. Find your specialism. Find the thing that you know a lot about. So it could be in film, it can be a genre particularly. Actually, it's not really for me. I sort of do fiction and doc. So I kind of feel like I know quite a lot about quite a lot.
Yeah.
To be confident about it, but I've been doing it for 30 years, so that's a long time.
Yeah, I guess you've learned from your experience as well, haven't you? And that's what's given you that hindsight and knowledge.
That's right. Also taking risks, I would say, just to add, like taking risks that's the kind of great thing about kind of when you've got nothing to lose, you know, it's a strength as well, and that you can take risks because why not? And that's a really kind of powerful thing actually, to become confident with risk taking, because in the film industry, I mean, it's like in lots of things, there's not really any certainty why one film will work over another. Everyone sets out to make a great film, a lot of us don't manage it.
Yeah.
And it's massively risky, but there's something in taking that risk and sort of framing that risk in a kind of smart way that's a really important thing. And that's in lots of areas of life, also jobs and direction. Often do the things that scare you. That's the best path.
Yeah. Is there a particular risk that you've taken which has really paid off for you, would you say, that like comes to mind?
Yeah, the obvious one is I gave up a really good job being head of distribution, and to become a producer, and it was really a stupid thing to do. And it, you know, I gave up a really good salary, I gave up security, I did it at a time which wasn't a great time particularly. But it just felt like I just worked with a lot of producers. I'd been working on a lot of British films for the previous few years, and I just saw all these producers. I just thought, God, they just don't really know what they're doing, and they don't know anything about audiences, and I do. And because being in distribution and then becoming a producer is pretty rare.
Yeah.
But actually what's interesting is the ones who have, like people like Working Title, and people like Paul Webster, who produces all like films like Pride and Prejudice and Atonement. A lot of them are really successful producers, you know, because they know how audiences work. So it was still quite rare, and I hardly had any money. I used my redundancy check to like set my company up, and then the first film I produced won an Oscar. So, you know,
Oh, good risk.
it was worth it.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. My next question is about COVID and the current pandemic, and what have been the challenges for you in particular and for the industry, like during COVID?
Well, there's two different big ones, I would say. Well, first of all, I'm in the middle of making another feature documentary, and we had to film. Our protagonist was coming out of prison in June. We had to film that because he'd been inside for 9 months, and we really had to capture that. And you know, we have really had to follow the guidelines and really kind of take big risk assessments as to whether we really needed to do it, and we decided we did. But the challenges are massive. You know, you really have to think about what we really couldn't bring in any other. We only had one other person join me and the director, because we thought we can't expose another person. Normally, you know, you wouldn't think about this stuff, and so we had to be really careful about that. And all the friends I know who are like editing, post-producing during this time, shooting, you know, it's massive challenges. You know, whether you're covered by insurance, it's huge, and you know, it's affecting lots of people's livelihoods because they're freelance and they're not working. I'm lucky I have a job in another sector, so you know, I'm not dependent on you know, I can live for 4 months in another way. And so that's a massive challenge. And you know, thank God things are opening up. People are starting to shoot again, and people are directing remotely. You know, there's been lots of innovation and incredible response, I would say, by the British Film Commission and the BFI coming up with guidelines. And then on the other hand, you know, what I do most of my time is spend touring the UK with films by women and showing them to audiences. And of course, we've not been able to do that for 5 months because all the cinemas have been closed. And the pain of that for the cinemas has been massive. You know, so then it felt incredibly important for us to carry on our work, and we've moved everything online, and we've been doing weekly events, talks with filmmakers, and promoting people watching films online, which of course has been a boom industry at the moment because no one's had anything else to do for a long time. You know, people have been absorbing content desperately. So we sort of slotted right into that. We felt it was really important to continue to be active. So it's sort of changed how we've worked, and it's been kind of amazing actually. We'd never have done it otherwise. So I think there's massive challenges from this, economic devastation compensated by some important schemes like furloughing, and BFI and DCMS putting together big funds to support our cultural institutions. Thank God, they would die without it. But equally, your innovations coming out of it as well. And that's always what happens in crisis. That for some, you know, there's devastation, and for others there are opportunities, and hopefully we can all share in the pain of one, and also the kind of the beauty of the other. You know, it's important.
Yeah, and this leads really nicely onto the next question, which is all about whether you think the nature of media and film will change post-COVID, and in particular wanted to talk about the film Clemency, which you've supported and backed through being director of Bird's Eye View charity, and which is being released online, isn't that right, initially?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tackling the first bit of the question, I mean, obviously the other thing that's happened is Black Lives Matter, and, you know, George Floyd, and this huge opening up again of a conversation that many people have been constantly having, but lots of people had shut their ears to, which is about inclusion and diversity and sharing opportunity and not hoarding opportunities. And so I think that's also a massive, you know, the door's open now, and I hope that I don't just hope, I will make sure personally, and I feel like a lot of other people will make sure that it doesn't close again. That, you know, that our film industry is far too white, it's too able-bodied, it's very straight, and it's very middle class. We have to do something about that, because that's not representing the UK. You know, it's not fair that we that, you know, so much of the industry is very much about who you know. That's not fair. And it's not just about training. There's a lot of people talking about, oh, we need more interns, but we don't. There's lots of people of colour in the industry, and they get stuck, and they're here, you know, they've been here forever. Give them jobs. You know, more people of colour need to direct feature films, and women need to direct feature films. I mean, there's a lot more that's been done in the last few years, but it can be better. We all know that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I feel kind of very hopeful about. And then secondly, yeah, it's about the opportunity that I was talking about. And so Clemency is a film that Bohemian Media picked up. They're a new company. They're headed by someone called Phil Hunt, who I've known for years, who's a really esteemed film financier, and he's got to a point in his career where he doesn't need to make money on every deal that he does, so he can take risks. He just doesn't want to lose money. But that's a very powerful mission if you want to then use that money to open doors for films like Clemency, which is his particular thing. He wants to work on films, give opportunities to films that sort of aren't being picked up, and often are by, you know, people who are LGBTQI plus, or people of colour, or both. And so we collaborated to release this film in a way that shares the profits, the digital viewing profits, because that's the only way we can release the film at the moment, because cinemas have been closed. They're opening up gradually, and Clemency is now on the big screen too, but largely the release was on the 17th of July, which is the International Day of Justice. The film is about, it's called Clemency because it's about whether or not a man on death row will achieve clemency or not. So it really is about justice, injustice, and what happens when a woman who is a warden in a jail, a high security jail that has a death row, all her morals and her whole kind of career and ethos is called into question when she believes, she's not sure whether a man on her death row is actually guilty of a crime or not. So, and as a metaphor, that's a really important metaphor for now. You know, we're all uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen. All the things that we felt were predictable, they're not. it makes us much more human, and that's a bloody good thing. So, you know, we felt like that the spirit of that film should also carry on into the release as well, given what we do, given Phil's ethos for his company. So that it's very unusual for a release online to share the profits with cinemas, because usually cinemas see online as competition. And the future is that cinemas don't see that. Not all cinemas see that, but quite a lot of them do. And a reason, because they don't usually benefit in the profits. So we've changed the model. We're not the only people doing this, but we're sort of at the vanguard to say, well, look, you can benefit from these. You know, your audiences can see films online and go to the big screen. And often films come off big screen very quickly, but could have a life online on a VOD player on a cinema site. So we're sharing 50% of the profits with over 50 organisations across the country. And that's really important, that, you know, institutions that have no way of earning money at the moment are being helped. It's small, but it's something.
It's a contribution, like you say.
Yeah.
Definitely. So can you tell us a little bit more about your Bird's Eye View charity and what decisions you make in your position as director?
Yes, so basically Bird's Eye View started life in 2003. It was a film festival showing films by women from all over the world. It happened once a year in the BFI South Bank, and then would have touring programs, and that ran until 2014. That was the last festival. And it wasn't set up by me at that point. I was a distributor, and then I was becoming a producer, and I went a few times, but I didn't have anything else to do with it. Then a friend of mine, Kate Grover, had taken it over, and she asked me to come in and run a program for emerging female filmmakers, British filmmakers, to kind of help bridge the gap that she was sort of noticing, for, you know, that it was just taking women so much time to move from shorts to features. And could we come up with a program that sort of helped understand the commercial side of the business more, you know, gave them more kind of experience in the kind of commercial sector. So I started running that, and I became very interested in, and it was at a point when I was starting to think, I've worked on hardly any films by women in at that point, 24-year career. And so it was the sort of start of my own kind of consciousness raising. I would always have identified as a feminist, sometimes overtly, sometimes not, sometimes having ambivalence around that word. But it was a sort of harsh awakening and thinking, actually, I don't want to do this anymore. I feel like I'm a foot soldier to the male creative voice. I'm bored of it. Mine is as important, and so is that of many of my female peers, and they're not here. When I'm with my peers who are active in the industry at that point, I'm feeling like I'm in a room full of men. And I just thought, I don't want to do this anymore. And also because I'd been bullied quite a lot. I'd had very difficult relationships with some male directors, particularly around success.
Yeah.
And I just thought, I don't want to do this anymore. Not in that way. So it was a kind of big epiphany for me. And also it was a big personal one, which is, it was the year that my mum died. The next year she had a brain tumor. I nursed her for a year, and she died. And she was a poet and a writer who never really got the kind of profile she deserved, because she didn't have the opportunities. And so those two paths sort of intersected, and I felt like, okay, Bird's Eye View, there's an opportunity here. I'm going to devote myself to it. I started having the same conversation with lots of other people in the industry, not just women, who were feeling the same, that they wanted to use their privilege and their contacts to give back. And that we all, you know, lots of people were looking at like 10-year studies of like British cinema, you know, and the numbers of female writers and directors who got to make features. And we were all going, Jesus Christ, I thought we fixed this, and we didn't, you know. So all of these things are kind of happening at the same time. And so and then I felt like there was an opportunity, which is to pivot Bird's Eye View into doing work year round, support releases. That for me, it's about access to the big screen and the small screen. That often that's the problem. Not just about making films by women, it's about great ones are there, but the confidence in them is not shown in the industry, and then the audience don't see them, and then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They don't make money. You know, films about women are too, you know, they're too small. Films about women of color, no one comes to see them. All these terrible things, you know, you hear over and over and over again. So I felt like, okay, we're going to prove them different, and we're going to say, we know where the audience is, you don't. Trust us. And then the BFI agreed that there was an opportunity, and so we started something called Reclaim the Frame, which is what we call our mission, to bring ever greater audiences to films by women. And it's a conversation with the audience, and the conversation with the audience is, you're powerful. If you care about equality, what you decide to see and not see makes a difference. And what we'll do is help you. We're going to spotlight the films. We're going to show you films that are written by women and or directed by women. Some of them are new, some of them are classics, and we're going to create events around them and conversations, and we're going to do them at a cinema, and you're going to have fun. We're going to build a community together, so we'll come back every month, and so people feel like they're joining something and they're participating, and that, you know, what they're choosing to see is making a difference. So and it's really working. So here we are.
Good. And it's what the industry needs. It's really good that you're campaigning for that and making a difference, like you're using your position to make a difference, which is really good to hear. I'm going to move on to the next question now, which is, if you could go back in time and give your 18-year-old self some advice as a young woman looking for a career in film, what would that advice be?
Ooh. I would say trust your instincts.
Yeah.
I've regretted when I haven't. Often when you think that on paper something looks like a good career move, but it doesn't feel right, when you don't listen to the feelings, yeah, you regret it. So I would say instincts are there for a reason. They're not always right, but very often they are. If something doesn't feel right, it's not right. And so I would say, so that's a big one. And then I wished I found my voice sooner.
Okay.
So I would work to be, and it's a constant problem, do lots of leadership programs and workshops with women. And it's a constant problem from whatever class and milieu people are from, that on the whole, very often women struggle to be confident in their voice publicly, in meetings. And so, you know, we've all got something to say, and there is a skill to learning how to say it, for sure. And so I would say, do work on that, you know, because then you'll be heard. And, you know, it doesn't mean you have to be an extrovert. I'm actually an introvert masquerading as an extrovert. Just learn how to do it. Yeah. So you can, there are tools. So I would do the work on that as well, because so often people will just want to shut you up. When you're a young woman, they just sort of don't really want to hear you. And, or they only want to hear about certain things. They just want to see you. That's the problem. You should be seen, not heard. And, you know, young women have got a lot of really important things to say. And yeah, I would say that would be my biggest advice. Like find the ways, find the places to be confident in your voice.
Yeah, that's definitely going to resonate with a lot of people actually out there. That's really good advice. The next question was submitted to us by Bethan Martin, who's 18. She's about to go off and study film and TV at Royal Holloway in London. She said, what is the best advice for young people to gain experience in the industry, and how does she go about getting work experience?
Well, usually so Beth, you're on a film program, so that's a great start, you know, and the good thing is that most of those courses organise and are connected to the industry. So you'll be fast tracked. You're lucky in that you don't have to do it yourself. And if you do, you at least have got an institution behind you. So then within that, I would say be ambitious, look up who you want to work for, who you admire, and get the institution to help you go and work there. And, you know, on the whole, people are very open to bringing new people through. And so I would say, you know, just, yeah, always be ambitious with who you want to work with. Don't accept just any old work placement, and think about what it is that you want to do. Also, what I would say, do take a position that is maybe not an area you're interested in either. Like if you get to do a couple of different things, you know, get on-set experience and then get distribution or marketing experience too, or cinema experience. You know, they're different parts of the industry. You know, one's the coalface in terms of the creative force, one's the coalface in terms of the audience and, you know, giving that film space in the world. They're different. And, you know, I'm really lucky I've had experience of both of those, and maintaining experience of both of those is really important to me. I don't want to be stuck in production because I find it really boring after a while. You know, I love meeting audiences and hearing why they go to see films. So the balance is really important to me. Also fiction and documentary, I love working in both. So, you know, you can be kind of a bit more granular about what your area of interest is, but sometimes the best experiences I've had personally have been the ones that are a bit counterintuitive, where on paper I've gone, I'm not interested in that. Like, why would I want to shadow a sound person, for instance? I might think I'm not interested in sound, but actually it's fascinating. So that would be my tip. Yeah, do challenge yourself sometimes. Do things that you just think you might not be interested in, because you'll always learn something and it will always surprise you.
And that goes back to the very first thing you said, which was how you took your inspiration, and the key to your success was you gained that knowledge, and you've gained knowledge of the whole industry. That's, yeah, really good advice. We'll move on now to our quick fire questions. The first question is, what are you working on at the moment? You did sort of give us a about this, didn't you? You said you were working on a documentary.
I'm working on a feature documentary. It's called Unspacely. It is the bad pitch is Boyhood, the Richard Linklater film that was filmed over 7 years, meets My Left Foot, because it's about a young man with cerebral palsy, but it's a feature documentary. Unspacely is a word that our protagonist Anthony Walker came up with, which describes how he feels he is in the world and how other people are to him as a wheelchair user, as someone with disabilities and no advantage. That often people are kind of moving away from him. They don't know what space to give him, and he doesn't know what space to take up. The very, very profound word that he's come up with. And so that's been 12 years in filming by Andrew Wisden, the director. And I've been on it for now a year and a half, and we've got funding for the BFI Doc Society. So we're in the middle of the edit of that now. And that's going to be a really special film. And a feature documentary about someone who's the kind of person whose stories are never centered around someone, as I said, who is not able-bodied, who has no privilege, who is poor, and who is also has been criminalized. Not really, none of which is his fault at all. It's just the way the system works. And so now more than ever is the time for telling this story, I think.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I can't wait to see that when it comes out. Do you know when that will come out, or you don't know at this stage?
No, not yet. We're not sure. Probably next year. Okay. Another year, I'd say.
Yeah, perfect. Who is your favourite female director?
Oh God, that's really hard. I don't like being pinned down to one person, but just the person that comes to mind is Claire Denis.
Okay.
I absolutely love Claire Denis. but then also I was watching an Agnes Varda film last night, again for about the 5th time, and I absolutely love her. So I'm going to squash 2 French women into one answer.
Perfect.
Yeah, for very different reasons, those 2, but I endlessly inspiring and fascinating filmmakers.
Oh, perfect. What is your favourite film, would you say?
Oh, I don't like being pinned to that. I don't really have one, really. I really don't. I genuinely don't. I love different things at different points. Films that mean something to me, I absolutely love Night of the Iguana, which is a John Huston film, and it's based on a Tennessee Williams play, and I absolutely love that film. But yeah, there's various films I would sort of lift up. Like I absolutely love The Beaches of Agnes, the Agnes Varda film. I mean, there's loads of films that I feel really strongly about, but yeah, I don't really like this favourite thing. I don't like favoritism.
Okay, fair enough.
So I'm just going to mention those. They're very white, so that really bothers me. So I feel like that's not also I'm not really, you know, Caucasian centric either. I have a real love of world cinema, so I would also say, you know, we worked on Atlantic, the Matty Diop film, and I absolutely love that film profoundly too. So yeah, I'll squash all those together. That's a recent one.
Perfect. How or why did you make the transition from marketing and distribution into producing, which you did partly answer?
Well, a lot of it was driven by kind of youthful ambition and overconfidence, which is quite useful sometimes, having overconfidence in one's abilities and knowledge, because it propels you to take risks. And not knowing also is a great thing. You know, when we know, like, we stop ourselves doing things, but not knowing what being a producer was really like is what propelled me into kind of feeling like I have to do this. I felt very strongly that I had a creative voice and I wanted to use it. So I see myself as a creative producer. Producers are not always framed as such.
Yeah.
And so it was a big drive to, explore my creative voice and my creative intentions. So to get nearer to the source of filmmaking rather than just being at the, you know, with the film at the end stage and with the end product. Yeah. And then also knowing that I just seeing other people make films and produce films, and me time and again thinking I could just do so much of a better job. A lot of it came from, I had a job that was with a film financier, so I got nearer to the making of films. Yeah. And I went on set for the first time, and a lot of the time I would think that script is all right, but I don't really know who the audience is. And I would just have that privately, and then I would be stuck releasing the film and thinking, wow, I actually knew that there wasn't an audience for this film. So I started to trust my creative instinct too, around being able to read, being a script and knowing who it was for or not, and whether it fully worked or whether it didn't. Also knowing whether directors were any good or not. You know, I started to develop a different set of skills, and so I just thought, okay, I think I can spot stuff. I think I know something. I think this having distribution and marketing experience really helps. So that was what propelled me, basically. It was a mad thing to do, to give up a really good paying job, but yeah, I'm really glad I did it.
Yeah, one that's paid off. Are there any upcoming directors or producers that you've got your eye on?
Yeah, I think there's lots of really interesting upcoming directors and writers, actually. I mean, certainly we're about to be part of the release of Eva Riley's Perfect 10, which is a debut feature. It's an iFeatures film. So it's BBC and Creative England funded. She's a new British writer director. That's a terrific debut and stunning lead actress as well. It's about a girl who's a gymnast and she loses her mum and her life kind of, and then she sort of forced to kind of reconnect with her dad.
Yeah.
So it's about the kind of world of gymnastics as well as a coming of age sort of rites of passage film. And the girl who plays her is a real gymnast, Frankie Box, and she's just amazing. She has an amazing story around working on the film, and yeah, so that's really exciting, I think.
Yeah.
And then oh my god, there are just so many. I can't wait for Matty Diop. I mentioned her on Atlantics. You know, people have been really excited about her short films. Atlantics was her feature debut. I can't wait to see what she does next. You know, I'm excited about Crip Camp is a film that we absolutely love, which is on Netflix, and it's a film by a man with a disability and a woman without, Jim Lebrecht and Nicole Newnham, and it's about an incredibly important moment in everyone's history, but particularly people with disabilities, and out of which it's a particular camp in America in the 70s, out of which enormous amount of like very significant lobbyists and people who changed the law in America. And that's an amazing film. And so I'm really excited about films that are not by able-bodied people and that star people who are not able-bodied instead of able-bodied faking it. Like, I'm excited about the industry really waking up and going, okay, what are we going to do about how pale and male and stale so many of the creative voices are, and what we see represented on screen? You know, we've got to do something about it. So I'm excited about all stories that haven't been told that we're going to see coming through.
Fantastic. And my one final question to you is, if you could sum up in one word or phrase the experience of winning and being nominated for a BAFTA and an Oscar, what would that word or phrase be?
Bizarre.
Bizarre.
Yeah, it's just really weird. You know, you think that it's going to be the best night of your life, and it sort of is, but there are a couple of things I would say. I've worked on a lot of successful films. That success has many fathers, failure has none. Yeah. Fathers being a particularly case in point, no room for mothers, that's a problem, in my experience. And secondly, no one teaches people success. So, you know, people don't know how to deal with it, and there's a lot of bad behavior. So these successes are, whenever anyone asks me, yeah, that must have been the best night of your life, or that must have been an amazing experience. It was, but it was also terrible.
Okay.
It was both of those things. And lots of people I know who've been in the same space relate to that. Like, it's an incredible thing and a terrible thing at the same time. It's very complex, but no regrets.
Good. That's fantastic. It's been lovely chatting to you, Mia.
Wonderful chatting to you. Thank you.
Thank you again for your very inspirational words. Just a note to the viewers that we will be screening Clemency here at Westlands on the 10th and the 11th in our cinema, and we will also be part of the virtual cinema and releasing it online as well. So what I'll do is I'll post the links to that in the description and in the comments below this video. And you can catch many of the films that Mia has worked on online on like Amazon Prime. Some are on YouTube for free as well, and on iTunes. Again, I'll post the links below in the description. But yeah, thanks again, Mia, and it's been really lovely chatting to you. You've been, yeah, very inspirational, and some of your words have definitely resonated with me as well. So that's been fantastic.
My pleasure. I look forward to coming, actually. So hopefully, you know, in a few months' time, when everything's a little bit more open and we can travel, we'll come and see you.
Absolutely, we'd love that.
Be there in person. Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.